All right, who's got it worse, the Nets or the Clippers? Plus, Damian Lillard is out for 2 weeks. We'll talk about what that means for the Portland Trailblazers before power ranking the title contenders. It's a fun one here on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On NBA Friday, your daily podcast covering the NBA. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app, thank you so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. I am Wes Goldberg here with Mike Richman of Locked On Trailblazers. Mike, thanks for joining me today. This is fun.
Thanks for having me on a
Yeah,
beautiful Friday.
a beautiful Friday. We're going to talk about Damian Lillard's injury in a minute. Nobody else better to bring on than you. And then we're going to debut a new wrinkle to our weekly power ranking segment. But first, let's talk about a couple of games from last night, tonight, however you want to talk about it, Thursday. Brooklyn lost a fun one to the Mavericks in overtime. The Nets got 39 points from Kyrie, 37 from KD. But that wasn't enough to keep pace with Luka, who erupted for 41 points, 14 assists, and 11 rebounds. Meanwhile, the Clippers, again without Kawhi, who lost to the Thunder 118 to 110. So we got both the Nets and the Clippers losing Thursday night, considered by many going into this year as title contenders. They've both now lost 3 straight games. Mike, are you more concerned about the Nets or are you more concerned about the Clippers?
I think I'm more concerned about the Nets because they're generally healthy. Like they're not totally healthy. They're missing some role players for sure, but they're
Right.
generally healthy. Like they're missing the guys they're missing are not the at the top of the marquee, shall we say? And they don't I don't see the pieces totally fitting. Like I think they play a little bit too slow to maximize Ben Simmons, who is the type of player that you need to build a team around and is yet not good enough to build a team around. It's quite a conundrum. Um, he's I think I'm more worried about them. I think the Clippers are just, they Paul George came back tonight and played 30 minutes and they still lost. But
Right.
I think some of it is just like they haven't had their dudes, and I think they're a team that has maybe too many NBA players, and when they all get healthy, I think they're going to be okay. But you could convince me. Who are you more worried about?
I'm more worried about Brooklyn, even though I guess I don't know how to frame it. I'm more worried about Brooklyn, but I was more worried about Brooklyn going into the season than I was the Clippers. But I think my gap of worry has increased with the Clippers, right? I thought the Clippers were going to be right there with everybody. Thought they were going to compete for the Western Conference title this year, the deepest
Yep.
team in the NBA, and all this stuff, best 1 through 9 in the league. And I don't think that's going to be the case if Kawhi is only going to play 2 games out of every 5. And that to me is a big problem. And everybody could tell me, hey, it's the playoffs. This is the maintenance program and all this stuff. Cool. The last time we saw the Clippers in the playoffs, they melted down, like with Kawhi and Paul George. So they're to me sort of Brooklyn Nets West. But that said, I'm still more concerned about Brooklyn because I still think that there's something to be said about when Kawhi and Paul George and that group is healthy. You can see a way in which it works. But with this Nets team, man, like you open up the season, you get blown out by the New Orleans Pelicans. You score 108 points, but you give up 130. You give up 134 points to the Grizzlies a couple nights later. You're giving up 110 points to the Bucks. You're giving up Thursday night 129 points to the Mavericks in overtime, even though you scored 125. This team can score points, right?
Yep.
Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, they're shooters that they have around them. They're going to score points. But defensively, they just can't stop anybody. And again, we knew that going into the season, but for a team that's consistently scoring 130 points or thereabout, they're just giving up so much on the other end. And I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah, they don't seem to have. It's hard to consistently play who they need to be on the court to be good, and put out a really good defensive unit. I'm a Nick Claxton believer. I think he's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I think there's a version of Ben Simmons that is one of the best defensive players in the league. He has not been here this season. Who knows when if he'll show up? But yeah, I mean, Kyrie Irving is a minus defender. They're going to play some Patty Mills minutes. Kevin Durant is not the defender he used to be, although in moments he can be. Like he's got it, but
They're
it's
not
probably
letting him do it,
unfair.
though.
It, it,
They're keeping him out of those situations.
yeah, and it's probably unfair to ask for 75 games of elite defense from Kevin Durant at age 34. It's maybe a problem with the NBA itself, but like just a reality of it. Yeah, I think I worry a little bit about that. I also think like, you know, there are a couple tough breaks at the end of regulation from beating the
Yeah.
Mavericks. So I would feel a little bit different, but I still in general, and I think you made a good point. It's like I probably thought the Clippers were closer to a championship team when the season started, and yet I am still more worried about the Nets just even getting into that conversation after
Yeah.
a week, after 10 days of basketball.
I want to kind of reevaluate that whole Clippers thing too, because again, if Kawhi is not gonna, if he's only playing 2 out of every 5 or 6 games, I think that's gonna be a problem. I don't know how this team builds any sort of chemistry.
Yep.
Doing this, you have Paul George coming into the season saying, "I'm gonna be the number 2, Kawhi's gonna be the number 1," and I'm like, I don't know. I think Kawhi, when he's healthy and doing stuff, he's obviously the best player, but part of being the number 1 is being available, and maybe Paul George should be the number 1 on that team, and it should just be Kawhi picking his spots whenever he wants to play and just be the best player on the court at times. Because when he is on the court, he is the best player, but he's only on the court at times. And kind of going to that thing that you kept saying, everybody kept saying it, like they got the best 1 through 9, the best 1 through 10, the best bench, all this stuff in the league, and I don't know that that's true. I'm at the point now where I'm looking at a team like New Orleans, and I'm wondering, hey, does this team have the best 1 through 9 in the league? You can go up and down the Western Conference even, and you could point to, I think, even a team like Memphis, even like Golden State, if they could figure out their bench with their young guys and stuff like that. I think Boston's pretty darn deep. I think there's other teams that are just flatly deeper than the Clippers, and so all the strengths that the Clippers were talking about going into the season. Hey, Kawhi's healthy, we got him back. Paul George healthy, we got him back. We got the deepest team. Blah blah blah. I don't know that those perceived strengths have actually been literal strengths so far.
Well, they certainly haven't showed up. I think for me, the Clippers, the secret sauce of the Clippers' depth was that they also had the two best wings. It's like
Right.
you have PG and Kawhi, and then you have 10 other NBA players, and so the depth is so overwhelming because no matter what, you're going to have, an all-star level 6'8" apex wing out there, perhaps two of them, and then you have any combination of NBA dudes behind him, and they were going to be like, okay, every night Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard, who are probably rotation players for almost every team in the league, one of them doesn't play. Like it was going to be a big choice for them. They haven't really, it hasn't clicked. Norman Powell struggled a little bit for him. I think that's one of the things. He's just like shooting bricks, and if he's going to play a lot, he shoots a
Right.
lot. He's going to shoot some bricks. The small ball thing hasn't worked for them yet. Like they don't have another center. It was going to be Covington as a backup center. That just hasn't really found its rhythm. They've been relying on Zubac a lot. I, I kind of like they won 46 games last year without playing either of these dudes. I have some confidence in them kind of finding it, and I do believe
Yeah.
in their depth probably more than you do at this point. But it's hard to win a championship without forming the good habits that good teams do. It's just hard to do it. And if you don't get a chance to form those habits over 50 or so games, best of luck when the games really matter.
That's why I keep calling them like Brooklyn West, is because it's just because of that reason. Yeah, they don't have the same personalities that the Brooklyn Nets do with like the weirdness of Kyrie Irving and the moodiness of Kevin Durant, but they just have a team that doesn't really play together, and it's been mostly just theoretical. I like the pieces. I think they have great players. I'm not breaking news by saying that. I don't know, man. Like maybe I'm overreacting to this. Clippers people will tell you, hey, this was always the plan with Kawhi. The knee is fine. This is just the maintenance plan in general. But I just have an issue with the plan? I think it's a dumb plan. I think the guys got to play. I think these guys got to form some sort of chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken a lot of time off. At some point, you want him on the court to figure out if this thing works because, um, you know, being really good in August actually doesn't matter.
Good point. It doesn't matter. But you got to build good habits, right? Like you've
Yep.
got to just and I don't know. All right. We're gonna get to Damian Lillard. We have Mike Richman here from Locked On Portland Trailblazers, who nobody better than Mike to talk about it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy, and easy is really what they are all about. All you have to do is play is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they're going to score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And the best part, no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, the WNBA, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. And they offer safe and fast withdrawals, which is a big plus if you've ever dealt with anything online like this. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. All you have to do is to download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks is just going to give you $100 to play with. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks is going to give you guessed it, $50 to play with. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. All right, back here with Locked On NBA. Make sure when you're done listening to Locked On NBA today, you go and make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On game to game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow game to game by subscribing to Locked On NBA. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. The Blazers announced on Thursday that Damian Lillard has a grade 1 strain of his right calf, and he's going to be reevaluated in 1 to 2 weeks. I'm going to throw to you right away, Mike. How big of a deal is this to a Portland team that has obviously had such a promising start to the season?
It's the last part of that. The last part of that press release. 1 week, not that big of a deal. 2 weeks, probably a big deal. The Blazers have a unique schedule. They play on Friday against the Houston Rockets today, as you're listening to this, because you're making this your first listen every day. Then they have 4 days off. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off in the middle in October in the NBA. Unheard of. Truly unheard of. For my beat reporters out there, congratulations, y'all. I'm happy for you. That means that Dame will, if he only misses a week, could conceivably miss 1 game. A real anomaly in the schedule. Couldn't have happened at a better time for the Blazers. But if it is that 2-week timeline, they begin a 6-game road trip with 2 on the road against Phoenix. And basically, they don't play any bad teams on the road trip until they meet the Charlotte Hornets nearing the end of that trip, with all due respect to our beloved Buzz. The Blazers have been one of the most surprising teams in the league this year. They started 4-0. They were competitive with a good Miami Heat team basically up until Dame got hurt, and then they were really bad. And if that's the reality without Damian Lillard, this goes from a team that's competitive and chippy and right there in the mix in the Western Conference in a way that very few people thought they would be, to a bad team, like to a play-in team. And then they're climbing out of the hole for the rest of the year. So, I was in the locker room. I talked to Dame. He didn't sound too concerned about it, but I think it's a big deal. I mean, you watched that Blazers and Heat game. You saw the difference between those two teams, the team that played the first, whatever that was, 31 minutes, and the team that played after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of what we were just talking about with the Clippers, right? It's one thing to build your team around a superstar like Kawhi and Paul George, and it's another thing to not have those guys available. And what does the team look like after that? And we basically just got like a living version of that with Portland in that Miami Heat game, because like you said, it was back and forth with Miami and Portland while Damian Lillard was on the court. Damian Lillard leaves the game, and Miami just goes on and blows out the Trailblazers. And all of a sudden, all these things that you did to kind of reconstruct this roster around Damian Lillard doesn't make as much sense. It doesn't work as well. Look, I don't think it's a big deal. To your point, maybe you get a break in the schedule because of this. I just think in general, losing a superstar this year in a Western Conference that is going to be this competitive for any amount of time can be the difference of maybe not missing the playoffs entirely, but the difference between having to play a game in the play-in tournament and not. And I don't think that Portland wanted to be in that situation where they were going to be. Maybe they were going to be anyway. Who knows where the season starts? Just because you start 4-0, it's not that big of a deal. It's such a small sample size. But you want to stack up these wins early, especially if you're a team that's trying to kind of overachieve the way that Portland is, based on kind of the expectations going into the season. So maybe it's a big deal. To your point, we don't really know. It's going to be a reevaluation in 1 to 2 weeks, right? We don't know if it's going to be a return in 1 to 2 weeks. It really just depends on how this heals.
Yeah. So in the locker room last night, so he leaves the game with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. In the locker room, he spoke to reporters, and I said, "Did you get an MRI?" And he looked at me like, "What? Like, why would I do that?" And I was like, "I don't know. Like, you're a professional athlete. It's
like the thing people do."
Yeah, like you should definitely get an MRI. Like if they haven't, like I'm not a doctor, I'm a podcaster, but like you should for sure go get an MRI at some point. Like talk to somebody. I'm sure someone smarter than me is in the back. He sounded so calm, so calm. He's like, he wasn't worried and all those things. So the vibe I got, he said he wasn't going to play Friday if they play the Rockets. The vibe I got was like, yeah, he's targeting Wednesday against the Grizzlies, no prob, and he really sees that as reasonable. He's a pretty fierce optimist.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty fierce with the optimism. So maybe that's just who he is. But I didn't get the sense he was worried about it. I've seen him more upset and more frustrated and all those things with injuries in the past than this. I wonder how many teams in the West could not survive's not the right word, but could stay afloat missing their top guy.
Right.
Golden State probably couldn't too well. Dallas probably couldn't too well. Denver probably couldn't too well. You get further down the list. For whatever reason, the Grizzlies can. You just throw anyone out there and Santi Aldama's ready to go. Like it literally just doesn't matter. Desmond Bane turns into Ray Allen, and they just keep that train going. But like, it's not unique to the Blazers, but it is a reality in a brutal Western Conference that if you are missing your top guy, you might find yourself quickly in that 7, 8, 9 range, which is going to be tough to get out of.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's zoom out. I'm glad you brought that up to the standings. Portland right now, number 1 in the Western Conference, will tied 4-1. Memphis is 4-1.
Yeah, 2 of the best teams in the league, baby.
4-1. There it is. Phoenix 3-1. New Orleans 3-1. Denver is 3-2. Minnesota, San Antonio, Golden State, and Dallas. All of them are 3-2. Dallas is 2-2. I don't think anybody really expects Utah to stay like this. So
particularly people who work in the Utah Jazz front office. I think that's the key on that one.
So let's just go ahead and kick them out. Sorry, David Block, our boss.
Yeah, my bad, David.
It ain't happening. New Orleans, Phoenix, Denver, Memphis, all teams we expected to be here. Portland, in some way, shape, or form, we expected to be in the top 10, even though nobody really thought they were going to be number 1. And then those guys in the play-in tournament, Minnesota, Golden State, Dallas, also expected them. We can give San Antonio the boot. They're not going to be hanging around here. We expect that the Clippers, currently 12th in the standings, will rise up. But what I am trying to say is Portland's firmly in this thing because you get beyond those teams that I mentioned, and those are sort of the 10 teams we expect to be in here. It's Oklahoma City, no. Houston, no. Sacramento's 0-4, even I had high hopes for them to at least make the play-in tournament. We'll see. Again, just a couple weeks, they can turn things around.
They're bad. I'll bravely say the Kings are bad.
Very good. Bold statement here, coming in hot. And then the Lakers also 0-4, and who knows what's going on.
Also bad. So, I'll say they're bad too.
There is an opportunity here for Portland to just avoid the play-in tournament altogether. I don't think that this Damian Lillard injury is going to determine whether or not they're playing in the play-in.
Right.
Again, seeing how this thing is reevaluated in 1 to 2 weeks, but it's just interesting to at least take a look at that. And to your point, if anybody misses any of their top stars for any amount of time, it's going to be so close in the West that it could literally mean the difference between playing a game in the playoffs on your home floor or not,
Yep.
So
it's 1 week or 2 weeks, right? A 1 week of Damian Lillard absence, you're probably still in the mix. 2 weeks, you might struggle enough, and we'll see, but you might struggle enough to end up the difference. That might be the difference in something like 5th and 8th. And that would be starting a play-in game on the road as opposed to being in the tournament and not having to worry about it. It's going to be that tight in the West, absolutely, all year long.
Let's talk about the power rankings. We just did a standings update. We'll do our power rankings of contenders next here on Locked On NBA. All right, back here with Locked On NBA. It's Friday, which means we are counting down to the weekend with our weekly power rankings. Usually, when Adam is here, he's got some sort of fun, kind of silly power rankings that we do, like top 5, I don't know, arms in the NBA, top 5 wingspans, afros. I don't know. I'm not doing that. I'm debuting a new wrinkle to our weekly countdown. It's just going to be actual power rankings. It's just going to be normal.
Wow.
Power rankings.
Outside the box.
Just really good teams. The one thing I am doing different is I'm going to make it 6 teams, not 5, not a top 5, not a top 10. I'm not going to do all 30. I'm going to do the top 6. And the reason I'm doing 6 is because I kind of feel like year to year, that's usually the amount of teams that are real title contenders. That's sort of your inner circle of title contenders. It's usually around 6. Because it's my power rankings and I'm making up the rules, I have the ability, the authority to move up or down. If I want to do a top 7 1 week, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to try to keep it to 6 because I feel like 6 is a good number. And honestly, I just wanted to be a little bit different, and I'm going with 6 instead of 5. And you know what? You get one more bonus power ranking. So let's start at the very top. Number 1, Milwaukee. plus
Yep.
11 point differential. They're 3-0. They've got wins over the 76ers, the Rockets, and the Nets. A defensive rating of 98.3, which is by far the best in the NBA. And a lot of the credit goes to Brook Lopez, who leads the league in blocks. He's been amazing for them. Also, Giannis looks awesome. They're the only undefeated team left. This was an easy pick. Milwaukee, number 1. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I had Milwaukee number 1 on my list as well. They're better than everyone else. They got the best player in the league right now, and they just look great. At some point, they're going to lose, but like this is the best team in the NBA. I do not think there's much debate about that.
The Brook Lopez addition can't be overstated, right? I mean, his back looks healthy. He's got like that viral block against Joel Embiid.
Yep.
He's able to stand up to him in a way that a lot of centers can't, and that stuff matters, right? When you get into the playoffs and in a potential matchup against Philly or other teams with big centers. And then the other version of that is, hey, if we're not playing that kind of team, we can't go small. We can put Giannis at the 5. We can put Bobby Portis at the 5 who can make threes and all these other things. They look great. I've got Boston number 2. They're 3-1. They're second in the league in true shooting percentage at 60.5. The defense has not been great, but I don't really care. I just sort of trust it. I think they're going to figure it out. They've been burnt a little by opponent 3-point percentage, going in at a higher rate than expected. And then Jason Tatum, talking about guys being awesome. Jason Tatum also has been very awesome. If you want to try to get on BetOnline and maybe sprinkle some of his MVP odds, I would highly recommend doing that. The odds are still pretty decent. Boston number 2. Any issues with that?
No, Boston's number 2 on my list as well. They look really good. They have a level and enough. And I like the Malcolm Brogdon. I know Brogdon hasn't played great, but I like the idea of Malcolm Brogdon as he figures it out. For them, another option to go small, another ball handler, which is something they're missing or were missing last year. It's just they got the juice. Like that's a good basketball team. There's a reason they were in the finals last year.
And like the Joe Mazzulla thing has been fine. It just feels like all the coaching hullabaloo is died down and not has been much of an issue as people expected. Number 3, I've got Phoenix. They're 3-1. Tell me if you've heard this before. They are killing teams. They're outscoring opponents by 11.4 points per 100 possessions. Sounds a lot like last season, Mike, for the Suns, and it kind of feels a lot like last season. Quality wins already over the Mavericks, the Clippers, and the Warriors by a combined 48 points. They did lose to your Portland Trailblazers, but by 2 points, 1 basket in overtime. And then here's Devin Booker's shooting splits. 34.7 points on 53, 48, 88 splits. He's taken up a notch. I like Phoenix at number 3.
I also have them on number 3 on the list. Aren't we supposed to disagree? Isn't that what these sports shows are? We're supposed to yell at each other? Sports yelling. Yeah, I mean, they're just really good. They're really good. Like, I know that everyone is waiting for the vibes to crumble in the desert. And I will agree that it doesn't seem like the coolest place to work, but they're a good basketball team. And if they're healthy, they're going to give people fits. I'm worried a little about their depth. I think they're a little shallow, but their top 6 are really good. And Campaign has been balling. And he was bad last year. He struggled. And if he gets going, they just have more answers and more non-CP minutes that are good.
And they still have the Jay Crowder chip to play, right? Like they could still move him technically for another piece and get another guy in the rotation. Damian Lee's been nice for them. He obviously had the game winner on opening night, but he's been a nice guard. He's not really a backup ball handler the way that you want behind Chris Paul, but he's at least another option off the bench. This is probably where we start to diverge on our lists. I'd be surprised if you have the same name that I have at number 4. I got the Pelicans at 3-1.
Oh, I do not have them. I got the Memphis Grizzlies at 4. Let's talk Pelicans first.
The starting lineup is outscoring opponents by 11.5 points per 100 possessions. They're awesome. They're top 5 in the league in true shooting percentage. They're first in offensive rebound rate, which is a nasty recipe. If most of your shots are going in, and then the times that you do miss your shots, you're just getting offensive rebounds and putting them in, that's a pretty great thing. 3 players, Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, averaging at least 21 points per game. They do need to clear some things up defensively, but they already have a better defensive rating this year than they did last year overall. They won their first 2 games over Brooklyn and Charlotte by a combined 34 points. They just beat Dallas without Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Herb Jones. Their only losses against the apparently awesome Utah Jazz. More than anything, just when I watch this team, 2 things stand out to me, and maybe this is just an emotional thing, I don't know. But number 1, they're huge, they're enormous, they're long, and I think that's going to cover up a lot of sort of the defensive IQ issues that this team has, just given how young they are and the fact that sometimes they just don't, some of their best players don't care about defense, but they're enormous and that matters, and that's affecting other teams offensively. And then the other thing too is that there is a confidence brewing about this team that when they step onto the court against Brooklyn on opening night for them or any other team that they're playing, Dallas, with even without two of their three best players and their best defender in Herb Jones, they just don't care. There's a belief in this team that they could beat anybody that's lined up against them. Shout out to Willie Green, who's doing an awesome job there. I love the Pelicans, man. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really, when they're fully healthy, they're not really playing Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes was the secret to their sauce last year. They're just so deep. They got a lot of dudes. Talk about a
Yeah.
team with like, they don't need Najee Marshall. He's a nice bench piece. When he played against Dallas, he was pretty solid. I've covered the Trailblazers for a decade. You know what everyone said for a decade is that CJ McCollum would be better as your third best player. Well,
There it is.
he's their third best player, and they look really good. And when he needs to step into a bigger role, he can. They got a 30-point, 17 rebound game from Jonas Valanciunas. Like, they got a lot of ways to beat you. Everyone on the internet loves Herb Jones, and I'm on the internet and I love Herb Jones too. So like, they're good. I do have them at 5 on my list because at 4 I got the Memphis Grizzlies.
All right. I almost had Memphis. I almost had them at number 6. They did not make my top 6. They ended up beating the Sacramento Kings Thursday night. Maybe I should move them up. But tell me about Memphis.
Well, they're just John Morant is on an absolute tear to begin the season. He is adding 3-point shooting to his game. And if he can shoot from 3, you cannot guard him. Because before you could go under and you could say, I dare you to take pull-up jumpers. If he can take standstill threes, if he can spot up, or he can shoot just like, okay, you go under, I'm going to get my feet set and shoot a 3. He doesn't need to bomb away. He needs to make, something like 2 out of 6 a night and 2 out of 5 on other nights. Like, he doesn't need to be a high volume 3-point shooter. He needs to be a slightly above league average 3-point shooter. And he is unguardable at that point. Unguardable. Yeah. And Desmond Bain is Ray Allen. Who knew? But like, this dude is Walter Ray. He is so freaking good. It's just that they might be, and maybe this is something that get me in trouble, but like, that's the best backcourt in the NBA. Those are the best backcourt in the league. Like, they're really good, and they've
them? Who's even up there with them at this point?
Phoenix.
Okay, maybe that would probably be the closest thing. I'm with you. John Morant's second in the league in points per game right now. Desmond Bain, the buffest 3-point shooter of all time.
Yeah, he's got big arms.
Right. So that means something. Santi Aldima's apparently a thing that they're doing.
Yeah, he's like fun. A totally fine NBA starter out of nowhere.
I love this team, man. I love Memphis. You can't make me say a bad thing about them. The only thing that I'm just a little curious about, and I don't think it'll be a bad thing. I don't think there's a downside to this. I just want to see what it looks like when Jaren Jackson Jr. comes back.
Right.
And so I'm probably wrong for keeping them out of my top 6. I don't feel good about not having them in my top 6. But I do not have them in my top 6, but I probably should have. Number 5 on my list is Golden State. Now, look, the Warriors have allowed, and this is a stat that was going around before they beat the Heat Thursday night. They allowed opponents to score at least 70 points in one half in 3 of their first 4 games, which I guess is the first time that's ever happened in franchise history. So that's not good. The bench is getting killed. Jonathan Kuminga can't get on the court anymore. James Wiseman, I like him. He had good minutes against Miami, but it's been up and down for him. Opponents are targeting Jordan Poole on defense over and over and over again. And I think that's a thing that people don't really talk about because they're so in awe with the dribble moves and the scoring and just the being the punched in the face-ness of it all. But he gets targeted, and part of that second unit, it's been an issue. They have literally the worst bench in the league by plus minus. Dante DiVincenzo and JaMychal Green have been good pickups. DiVincenzo's hurt, but it kind of feels like they're still missing Gary Payton and Otto Porter. And defensively, they just haven't been very good. And last year, when Steve Kerr got into a defensive pinch, it was always, all right, Gary Payton, go in there and fix it. And a lot of times Gary Payton went in there and fixed it, right? And that was why it was such a big deal when he got hurt against Memphis and then came back for Boston and everything like that in the finals. Otto Porter, same thing. Like, he was the secret sort of skeleton key to the lineup that ended up helping them win the finals with Draymond at the 5. They missed those guys. And I like JaMychal Green. He's fine. He's not Otto Porter defensively. And I like Dante DiVincenzo, but I don't think he really adds the things that they need, which is what Gary Payton brought. But I have them number 5 on my list for a reason.
I was going to say, that's a lot of negatives for the 5th best team in the NBA. I like that.
They're the Warriors, and Steph
Yeah.
Curry is right where he left off in the finals last year. His numbers are just amazing. He scored 33 points, 10 in the fourth quarter to knock off the Heat, who were competing there on the second night of a back-to-back. Andrew Wiggins, who at this point is their second best player, I guess, is also just this season started off right where he left off from the finals. And like I trust the infrastructure there, and I felt weird to have him lower. I probably should have Memphis higher than them. I probably should have my number 6 team higher than them, but they're the defending champs, and it's still early in the season enough where I'm not going to overreact to anything.
Yeah, I have him 5-2. This
Okay.
is maybe a career achievement award. I think this is the team that's going to be in the championship conversation. There was almost nothing they could have done in this first 5 games of the season to drop out of my top 6 teams in the league. Like, I don't know, trade Steph, like if they
Right,
had,
that's the only way.
if this crew's here, they were going to I was going to put them in my top 5. You said, hey, power rankings. I said, okay, Golden State, great. I'll write that name down. And we'll figure out where they fit in. Yeah, I'm worried. I'm a little worried about the young guys, but their Warriors University has been a pretty good incubator for youngsters to get better. Jordan Poole went from not looking good half of, early in the season last year, even as recently as last year, the first couple months, he was like, okay, I don't really get what this, how he's going to fit all in. He's too erratic. He's all these things. Then he made $100 million a few months later. Like they Warriors University works. Like I really believe in it. So I'm Jonathan Kuminga doesn't look great. Moses Moody he's not quite there, but he looks fine to me, but he's not quite like a high level contributor yet. I think by the time we get to March, we will all be excited about, some 20-year-olds on the Warriors.
And I think that's the point of the regular season. I thought that they weren't going to get the number 1 seed. I think a lot of people were betting on them to get the 1 seed. I thought that they were going to approach the regular season this way, just playing these guys a bunch of minutes together and having them figure it out. And if you have to sacrifice some wins during the season, you do it because you want to get these guys ready for the playoffs. My number 6 team, I've got the Denver Nuggets. They're 3-2. Take away that weird opening night loss to the Utah Jazz. And the point differential isn't nearly as bad as it looks. They've got quality wins over the Warriors. They've got a quality win over the Lakers. It's like the best version of the Lakers because they were without Russell Westbrook. That was more of a joke. The defense has not been improved the way that they said it was going to be improved, but they've been burnt a little bit by better than expected 3-point shooting from opponents. I still think that when you get the pieces clicked into place, there's enough there defensively where they'll make it work. And Jovic has still been awesome, man. Nikola Jokic, sorry, Jovic. I'm a Miami Heat.
Yeah, Miami guy. There you go. First time anyone's ever done it in that direction. So great
That's
work.
right. Yeah, it always goes the other way. Nikola Jokic is still awesome. Michael Porter Jr. is looking great. Jamal Murray, I think he's going to work it out. Moreover, I just like the team. I just like Denver. There's not a team left that I trust more than them when outside of this top 6 right now, maybe other than I'm not putting the Clippers in here. I'm not putting the Nets in here. I'm not putting Philly in here. They've just been that bad. No, I'm not putting the Jazz in here, despite the 4-1 record. So I was split between Memphis and Denver. I ended up going Denver. Again, maybe should have went Memphis, but I went Denver here.
So I had Denver and I crossed them out because I wanted a hot take. I wanted to close the show with a heater. I got the Cleveland Cavaliers. They don't have quality wins. They don't have quality wins. I admit it. Their wins are over Orlando, who's not a particularly good. Their quality win is over Chicago, but Orlando and Washington, they lost a close game early in the season at Toronto. But doing this without Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell's a bucket. Dude is he can score in any jersey, as it turns out. They've leaned back into being big. They're starting Dean Wade, who's a power forward at the 3, because they realize we're better with 3 giant people on the court. Like, that's our identity. That's how we got there last year. Isaac Okoro, who I thought could take that spot, lost it. This is a team that's still searching for what they can be, and they're smoking bad teams. One of the best ways to judge for me during the regular season is, do you take care of business? Cleveland so far with some injuries and with some, and just, with the schedule that they've had in front of them, they lost a close one, and then they've had teams that they're better than. And what they won by double digits. To me, that's a team I believe in. I did feel a little worried about not having Denver in here, because I did think maybe a week ago that Denver was significantly better than this Cleveland team. So, if you could see my notebook, I did have Denver initially, but I'm rolling with Cleveland, baby.
I love it. I like that you went bold with it. The reason I didn't have Cleveland was I thought about this like almost like a BCS ranking, like college football playoff type of ranking where do I really think the Cavaliers are better than the Nuggets? No, I don't. So
No.
I put the Nuggets ahead of them. They don't have a quality win.
Right.
That matters. I'm taking the fact that Darius Garland is injured right now as like I like you could spin it positive. They're still beating teams without him. But I keep just saying, like, they don't have him. He's hurt. So
Right.
I'm just knocking him out of their power rankings. Like, if these teams went head to head right now, I think they would lose against the teams on my top 6/7-ish because I keep talking about Memphis too. But I like that you went bold. I considered Cleveland as well. But then, like you said, when you dig deeper, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But I like them.
Impressive net rating. The numbers say that they're good, but they just they're going to play a good team this week, and we will get a little more info. Their next game is against the Boston Celtics, the Knicks, and then the Celtics again. So by the time you power rank next week, you'll know for real how good Cleveland is.
That's right. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week here on Locked On NBA. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On NBA wherever you listen to podcasts for 30 minutes of the NBA's top stories every day. Until next Friday, you can find me over at Locked On Heat. Mike is over at Locked On Trailblazers. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day.